This conference will now be recorded.
So welcome everybody. Today is November 18th, 2020, and our topic today is financial, medical, and legal tips that everybody needs to know in order to help your family and friends successfully prepare for the aging process. And I'm very excited to be co-hosting this today with FirstLantic Healthcare. And I'm also excited to have back two prior guest speakers, Christian Ferreira of Truist Life and Jeffrey Oliverio of SunTrust Investment Services. So welcome. So we're going to start today's topic talking about some of the unique needs and experiences people have as they go through the aging process. And what I'm hoping we can encourage all our listeners to do is to shift the way people have been thinking about the aging process to a new vision. And what I mean is many people don't start to think of these things until they reach age 60 or 65, as if that's the magic age at which to start to plan or start to think about the things we're going to be talking about today. And our goal today is to really encourage everybody who's watching to start much earlier. You know, we know that some of our attendees today are older adults, some are adult children of older adults or their friends or family members. And so the sooner we start to think about the issues and become informed, the better prepared all of us are going to be. So I find that statistics and studies speak louder than words. And so I hope that when you hear these statistics, you're going to realize that there is no magic age that we should start. We should start now, in the present. So believe it or not, in this year, 2020, studies are showing that 47% of people in the United States are between the ages of 65 and 84, and 7% are over age 85. Now, the Census Bureau is telling us that 20 years from now, we are going to have 80 million individuals in the United States over age 65, and we're going to have 14 million people over age 85. So this is sending us a message. It's sending us the message that I've been witnessing for the last 20 years in my elder law practice, which is we are living longer. And not just we here in the US, but all over the world. Life expectancies have increased dramatically since the 1950s or the 1960s. Now, we do see in statistics that women seem to outnumber men. Now, that can perhaps be because they're better at handling stress, better at balancing all the aging challenges that come along. What I find is very interesting is in the statistics I've read, 61 million adults in our country live with a disability. So they have some very unique needs. Some of these individuals were born with a disability from birth, which might mean that they were diagnosed with autism or the autism spectrum. They might have cerebral palsy, spina bifida, Down syndrome, or they might have been born healthy, but then experienced an accident, an illness, or some sort of injury that has left them with a chronic disability. So they have unique needs as well, because what we're seeing with our healthcare system is that even with a disability, people's life expectancies are not reduced in the way they once were. So planning is so important, whether you're healthy or whether you have a disability. Now, when March 15th came around in our country and states started to close down, businesses were closing down, schools were closing down, we started to witness, unfortunately, some very negative effects of the virus and the shutdown. It weighed heavily on people's mental health, especially for those that were by themselves because a spouse had died or perhaps there was no family nearby. But we especially have learned in the last 8 months that individuals living in certain retirement communities, whether they're independent living, assisted living, or skilled nursing facilities, have really taken the brunt of the quarantine. That feeling of alienation, of being disconnected, the lack of touch. So the virus has also been a lesson for us in that it's changing the way we look at the aging process and what are our options when it comes to where we're going to live. Many people and their families have been reevaluating whether they should take their family member out of the residential environment and bring them to a family member's home to take care of. So this is raising all kinds of questions that touch on the financial planning aspect, the legal planning, as well as encouraging people to truly understand our healthcare system. What does it provide? What doesn't it provide? So as we explore different groups and their unique needs, we also want to be aware of some of the challenges that the LGBTQ community faces. And some of the studies are showing that there are currently in the US 3 million LGBTQ individuals over age 50. And in another 10 years, another decade, we're looking at that more than doubling. And seniors are twice as likely to age alone, although we do think that that statistic is going to start to change. Now, traditionally, the reason for that outcome has been that many LGBTQ couples, whether they marry or don't marry, were less likely to have children. And what we're seeing these last few years is second parent adoptions. We're also seeing surrogacy arrangements. So these statistics may very well change in the next 5 to 10 years, where we will start to see that in this community, there is more family network, more of a support system available. But currently, this community, just like some of the other populations we just touched on, really need to plan ahead too. Why is that? Well, 50% or greater of these elders are receiving care from a partner. And we all have witnessed that if there's just one caregiver, it is very likely that that caregiver is going to get burnt out at some point in time. They tend to focus solely on the person needing the care, that they tend to neglect their own physical, psychological, and mental health needs. So there needs to be more planning to create a better structure for a support system and to be able to finance an alternate support system. So here the key is become educated early, become informed to make informed decisions, and plan ahead rather than being reactive to the changes as they occur. So now I'm very happy to introduce everybody to Jack Maloney of FirstLantic and Nicole Wetzel, who is their patient care coordinator at FirstLantic Healthcare. And Jack and Nicole are going to share with us some options about receiving care at home, as well as having a real clear grasp of what our Medicare system provides and what it doesn't provide. So welcome, Jack and Nicole.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. My goal today is to give you guys a quick overview on what home care is, how to plan for it for the future, and just some general things that are covered when you talk about Medicare and some other ways it can be paid. And also, Nicole will walk everybody through a case study of what a typical life of a home health client may look like. So again, my name's Jack Maloney. I'm the president of FirstLantic. And I'd like to start by just saying, what is home care? So that we're all talking from the same playbook. So home care is a wide range of healthcare services that can be given in your home. And it's usually for an illness, an injury, or a disability. That's sort of generally what home care is. We're taking care of you in your home. There's two main platforms or distinct ways it's done. One is hourly care, and one is Medicare. So hourly care is typically going to be either a nurse, a home health aide, or even at times a therapist. Generally speaking, there's going to be four ways to pay for that. And those four ways are private pay, where you're writing a check or a credit card. It could be reimbursed by long-term care insurance. And that's probably something that Chris Ferreira from Truist will be speaking on a little bit more later. Could be a veteran's aid to tenant benefit, which I'll circle back to, and also Medicaid. It could be a managed Medicaid plan. If you notice, one of the things I didn't say was Medicare. One of the things that we get a lot is, oh yeah, my husband, my wife, my loved one, my significant other, my neighbor, my mom, my dad, whoever, yeah, they have Medicare, so it's all covered, right? And the answer is absolutely and positively not. Medicare is not a payer source for hourly care. Here's what Medicare is. And when I talk Medicare, just again, so we're on the same page, I'm talking about managed care. So you may have something like a Humana Medicare Advantage plan, or any of the other ones that are out there, or a clear straight Medicare plan. So Medicare is an episodic plan, meaning it reimburses on a 30 or 60-day event for stuff like a hip replacement, a stroke, anything that requires that you need care at home. And one of the contingency requirements for Medicare is that you do need care at home. And these are for visits only. So in other words, you'll have a nurse come in and potentially, dress the wound and then leave. You'll have a therapist come in and give you a PT treatment because you just had a knee replacement and then leave. So this isn't somebody that's helping you throughout the day with any of your activities of daily living, bathing, dressing, go to the store, driving you to the doctor, those types of things. And Medicare and Medicare Advantage fully pay for home care. So there's no real, let's call it planning needed. And that's not what this discussion is about. So this discussion is not about Medicare home care, but what you have to recognize is that Medicare home care fills a different need than we're talking about today. And it's typically not the care that's going to keep you at home long-term and very independent. So again, we talked about private pay as a way to pay for this type of care. And that's where planning comes in. I'm sure Jeff Oliverio from SunTrust will talk about that when it's his turn, but that requires planning, and there's some ways to handle that. We talked about long-term care insurance, which for anyone out there that doesn't have it, I highly recommend it. I have it myself. My wife has it. I've recommended it to many people because I know what happens to people that unfortunately can't afford home care and don't have long-term care insurance. And it puts them in a very precarious position. We also handle veterans. It's called Aid and Attendant Program. So if there's veterans out there, we can help walk you through how you might be covered on some home care that in this case is fully paid. Of course, then there's Medicaid, which you have to qualify, and Medicaid is a managed care program in the state of Florida as well. So the biggest thing that I can leave you with is Medicare does not pay for this. Now, there is some talk on Medicare Advantage offering a benefit on this in the future. They're talking about anywhere between 20 and 200 hours a year of hourly care. To put that in perspective, many of our clients go through that in the first few weeks. So it's really a very, even if they do get that program off the ground, it's really going to be very limited, and it's not something that I would be putting all my faith into. So what I'd like to do is just leave you, before I send you off to Nicole, with the idea that you really have to figure out how you're going to fund any type of care you may need at home in the future. And it's really something to put a lot of thought into, because a lot of people need it. And frankly, a lot of people want it because it's one of the best places to receive care. I'm going to pass you over to Nicole Wetzel. You guys are, it's your lucky day, because she's truly a leading expert in home care. And I mean that genuine and from the bottom of my heart. She's a 25+ year veteran of our industry. She's super caring, compassionate, and knowledgeable. And I'll send it over to you now, Nicole.
Thank you very much, Jack. Hello.
You're welcome.
So after such a great introduction, so I'm Nicole. I'm a patient care coordinator, and I'm going to try to walk you through a case study. What does it mean being a patient care coordinator, and what does a day in my life really look like? So let's just begin by saying that very, very few patients, and that's really one of the reasons why we're all here together today, is very, very few patients are really prepared, have any kind of setup, idea of services that are available, how they can prepare for it. So most of the time when I get called in is really after an accident already happened. So say my patient gets up in the morning, tries to take a shower, falls. At that point in time, at some point of time, hopefully they will be taken to the hospital. They will be taken care of, probably had surgery, and within a day or so find themselves in a post-op situation that they did not plan on. Most of the time, anybody can actually contact a patient care coordinator. It can be families, it can be friends, neighbors, long-term care insurance agents, as well as financial planners and attorneys. But most of the time, it's the case manager within the hospital setting that will contact me. Okay. When they do so, I reach out to the patient. What happens then is the patient interviews with me. If the patient feels that I am the right fit for them, then at that point in time, I start becoming a patient care advocate and start following this individual's progress. The way that usually looks like is that we'll take a thorough intake. We try to find out who is who. We try to find out, do you have a long-term care policy? At that point in time, we'll verify that long-term policy with the patient. So once again, they're reminded of what their coverage actually looks like. That is the long-term care part of it. Then comes the rehab part of it. I will assist that patient from post-op to picking a rehabilitation facility. That might be acute rehabilitation within a hospital setting, or a step-down scenario in a nursing/rehab facility, but I will follow that patient through that rehabilitation process. Okay, we then become part of the team. The team, I mean, at that point in time, is a physician, is the rehab team, is the social worker. Everybody gets called in and follows the progress of that particular patient. Once that team has established that it's time for the patient to go home, then we'll facilitate interviews with caregivers, because most of the time that patient is not capable of going home by themselves because they need certain assistances with their activities of daily living that they currently cannot do for themselves. We set up an interview schedule for caregivers to try to make sure that we have the right fit right from the beginning. And then that caregiver is being scheduled by us for caregiver orientation with the rehab floor. Reason why and there's not a lot of agencies that will do the caregiver orientation, but we feel very strongly that it's a necessity for two reasons. First of all, there's nothing better than going home with a person that you already know can take care of of you. So that is number one. Number two is also we want to reassure our own caregivers that they have made the right decision and that they can care for this patient, because we all want positive outcomes at the end. Okay. So after that orientation is done, we wait for the discharge. In general, we even assist with transportation needs that the patient might have and take them home. I am still involved, even if this patient leaves the system, because what we're doing is we're setting up doctor's appointments for this patient. We make sure that medications are in the patient's home. We make sure that there's groceries and everything, that everything is set up for that patient to actually recover in a safe manner in their privacy of their own home, all the way up to the point where they gained their independence and then hopefully will be able to be discharged at that point of time. Not all of that is always given, so it takes a lot of teamwork, essentially, to be able to make that patient safe in their own environment. And that kind of like goes back to all my co-presenters that are here today, that all have like an important place in that situation with that individual. Thank you. Stephanie?
So thank you, Nicole.
Okay, so
Jack,
I'd like
walk us
to
through.
well, I just wanted to touch on hiring an agency versus hiring a home health aide on your own, and then Nicole's going to talk a little bit about just some, quickly about some trends in COVID and some pricing and some cost of home care. So, when I hear a lot of people say, well, I have a friend of a friend who's a caregiver, I might just hire them, or someone down the street used a caregiver and they have a sister, and they're going to come and care for me. And so just some things to think about and some considerations if that's the right move for you. The first one is that the person you're hiring may or may not be qualified. They might not be trained. They might not have a background check. They might not be up to date on CPR. And there's no nursing oversight on them. So we're a full service nursing agency, like most home care companies, and it's really important to have somebody that oversees the care. Secondly, during this time, of course, we supply our team with PPE. So that's obviously important to a lot of patients and caregivers during COVID. A very a huge benefit, and it's overlooked and underappreciated, is that if you hire somebody on your own, you have no relief and no backup caregiving. If they leave, if they quit, if you want to fire them, if they're late, there's just no team behind them. And you run the risk of being alone until you can find a replacement. And it puts yourself in a very disadvantaged position. A couple other quick things would just be that, we obviously provide workers' comp insurance, which is something that you likely wouldn't do if you hired them yourself. You could avoid any payroll issues or IRS tax issues. And then the last thing is most long-term care insurance policies don't reimburse for a private caregiver. Most of them, and I'm sure Chris will highlight that, you have to be a licensed home health agency. So I'll send it over to Nicole for a quick talk about COVID, and then I'll just tell you a few other quick things, and then we'll pass it over to Jeff.
Nicole, go ahead and unmute your microphone, please.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you, Jack. So once again, I would like to go over a little bit of costs first, to let you know that costs can go anywhere between $18 and $22 for a home health aide for hourly care, depending on what the condition of the patient is. If there's any skill needed, then of course we can go to LPNs or RNs, physical therapists, occupational therapists, and speech pathologists that can be part of the team as well. So you're looking, when you're talking about skill, about up to $70 an hour. So you can see very quickly that that this can become very costly, and that therefore there's planning that is absolutely necessary that should be done prior, as soon as possible. To throw COVID-19 into the mix now is also a lot of times a cost factor, because due to the fact that patients want to go home more often, there is an increase in cost just by the sheer supply and demand that we're experiencing right now. More and more patients would like to go home with live-in care versus hourly care. The reason for that just simply is less people in your home. If you have a live-in versus hourly care, it's somebody that actually moves in with you and that you're providing room and board to. So, the patient is assured that it's the same caregiver all the time, and that gives them peace of mind as far as COVID-19 is concerned. So with that supply and demand, of course, there's an increase in cost in that as well. From an agency and a FirstLantic perspective, there is an additional cost, of course, as well, because we provide all of our caregivers with the PPE equipment. That is usually your mask, your gloves, your hand sanitation. If it is a COVID positive patient, which we are accepting as well, then there's other supplies such as gowns, shoe covers, shields, anything that comes with that. So it's very trying currently to be able to keep up with supply and demand and keep the costs down for the patient so it's somewhat affordable. Jack, I don't know if you would like to go.
So, guys, we just want to leave you with the thought that we're here to help. Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Jack.
No. Yes, you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'd like to just leave you with the thought that we're here to help. Use this as a resource. We've been in the business now 20 plus years, and we've created and developed multiple service lines through our team of trusted professionals, all designed to keep you safely in your home for as long as possible. And we also have a geriatric care management service, which sits on top of home care and can help you with all other types of things above and beyond your care. And finally, if you decide that the home is not the right place for you, and you wanted to move into an assisted living facility, we do have a placement service called Live Well Placements, which can help you find the appropriate place. So thank you all for listening to us about home health care. We talked about how to keep you home, and this doesn't happen without planning. So Jeff Oliverio from SunTrust will now discuss some ways and different ideas and how you.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Nicole. And I also will say, in my experience with my personal clients, I've had to rely on some of their advice and assistance, and would certainly recommend anyone that has either family needs or personal needs to reach out to them for more information. So One of the things, and I just want to quickly introduce myself. My name is Jeffrey Oliverio. I'm a certified financial planner with SunTrust Investment Services, part of SunTrust, soon to be Truist, and would like to kind of give an overview of what we do with clients as part of the planning process. Obviously, as the needs for long-term care become more prevalent in society, we encourage all of our clients to engage in some activities around planning for long-term care. One of the things that I stress to my clients is that when you are in need of long-term care, whether you have a plan or not, one will be implemented for you. So I try to encourage everyone to make that plan with not only themselves, but with their trusted family members, contacts, friends, or family, whoever will be part of that process. So one of the things I'd like to stress again is financial planning obviously is important for everyone, and we start that process, hopefully as early in life as possible, but delaying it certainly can be detrimental long term. The things that we focus on again are when we look at financial planning is your financial picture going to be able to meet all of your needs through your lifetime? And that includes, things such as your basic living expenses, taking care of family members or children, looking at healthcare needs, which is what we're certainly focused on today. We go through the different types of healthcare. A lot of people still believe in the, concept of they're going to be taken care of by their family members or children. And we really like to point out, obviously, that the type of care that many people need would be beyond what could be done by your family members in the home. We then will focus on, the ways in which we can help plan for those healthcare costs in the future and incorporating that into the financial plan. The other issues that we like to, again, focus on with that plan is how does it impact your personal situation. Many people will state that they may or may not want to be in in some type of a facility, as we just mentioned, especially around issues with COVID. So we go through what the different costs may be, and incorporating that cost into their financial plan and taking a snapshot of all of their assets. One of the most important ones that I like to focus on is a lot of people think that they may leave their house to their children. And if your home is your biggest asset and it would need to be liquidated for your care, do you want to create a way to avoid that so that you can maybe pass on real estate to your children and fund long-term care through other sources? So all of these are topics that we engage our clients with. We use a tool that is called Summit View. And it's a financial planning, it's a comprehensive tool. It aggregates all of your data and information from whether they are sources within our firm or externally, such as 401k plans, and external assets like real estate or business interests. And we use all of that information to help create an ongoing financial plan that we deliver to our clients, and customize those for their specific needs. Stephanie, do you want to go to the next slide? So one of my partners that's here today, and we work in tandem really with many of our clients, Chris Ferrer is with our Truist Life Insurance Services. When we create a financial plan, one of the things that we do is then we incorporate someone like Chris to help us kind of fill the needs within that plan with different types of ways to insure for those risks. What Chris is going to do today is kind of bridge the gap between once we create your plan, create what your needs are, to go through the different ways in which you can fund those long-term care needs and go through the different choices that may be available to clients. So without further ado, I will introduce Chris. I think Chris is on mute.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. Thank you, Jeff. Again, my name is Chris Ferreira. I'm the Regional Insurance Strategist for Truist Insurance Services. And in my role, I really act as a brokerage for clients. And what that means is that when we are meeting and discussing different alternatives to fund long-term care, I have the wide range of, discussing any type of product, any company. So really, we focus more on the need of that client, and to the extent that insurance makes sense for that client, we can make the right recommendation. If we can move to the next slide, Stephanie. And before we get started, because I am employed by a bank and I'm a registered rep, I have to disclose that any information that we provide here today is intended to be educational in nature and not to replace any tax or legal advice. So with that out of the way, we can get started. And I think, Jack did a really good job of, talking a little bit about what are the options, once individuals decide that long-term care is something that they need to plan for. One of the biggest questions that they'll have or decisions they'll have to make is how are they going to pay for it, right? And I think Chad highlighted some of those options. So Medicare may not be a payer of long-term care. Medicaid is limited in terms that you have to qualify for it and you have to spend down your assets down to the last $2,600, I believe it is, to be able to qualify for Medicaid. And, Justin, when I tell you if that's your plan, you probably won't, want to be in any of the facilities that you would qualify to receive care through Medicaid. So really the main two options people are faced with is, do I pay for this out of pocket and self-insure? Or do I use private insurance, to really subsidize and get the leverage that I need to pay for long-term care if I ever need it down the road? So what I want to do is really highlight what are the options for private insurance, when you get to that point. And we typically have two main products. There's 4 different ways people can, choose to insure today. I'll focus my comments on 2, which are really the most common products that we deal with, and then I'll mention the other 2 briefly. So we have the traditional products. These are the products, if you had family members that had received care or had insurance in the past, they more likely had a traditional long-term care product, which really looks more like health insurance or car insurance. And we call those products use it or lose it products. And the reason for that is that, depending on when you purchase the product, if you purchased it in your 50s or 60s, you could technically pay for 20, 30, 40 years. And if you never needed the benefit, then that premium goes away. There's really nothing to be gained unless you need the benefit. Another, issue with this product is that the premiums are not guaranteed, meaning that what we've seen in the industry for the past 20 years is that as time goes by, the cost of long-term care continues to increase. And what a lot of these carriers are doing is passing that cost to their insurers in the way of premium increases. So if you have one of these policies, if you haven't already, you will probably start getting premium increase notices at some point throughout the time that you hold that product. And some of those premium increases can be significant. They happen on average every 3 to 7 years. And we've seen them as low as 50%, as high as 80%. So they can make a big impact, especially for those individuals that are on a fixed budget and are, older in age. Also, a lot of these products only cover facility care, meaning that they only pay a benefit if you receive care at a facility or by a professional. Some of them cover home health care, some of them don't. So just really depending on the product that you have, will determine, the type of care that you would receive. And finally, I would say that, 90% of the products out there that are traditional in nature are what we call reimbursement benefits. When we speak about long-term care or extended care coverage, there's really two types of benefits available. One is reimbursement, which is the most common, and that means that if you were ever to need the benefit, you're going to pay out of pocket, collect all the receipts, and then submit them to the company for reimbursement, hence the name, reimbursement benefits. Some of the newer products that are available in the marketplace today are called hybrid products. And they probably offer the most flexibility to consumers today. They are no longer use it or lose it products because you will get a benefit regardless if you need the benefit yourself. If you change your mind or something happens, you can get your money back, all or most of your money back. If you die too soon, they provide a death benefit. So, we call these products, flexible in terms that once you buy them, someone will get, the benefit, either you because you need it, you because you changed your mind and you no longer want the product, or someone you care about in the way of a death benefit. Another point with this product is the premiums are guaranteed. So once you buy a product, a hybrid product, your premiums are locked in and they'll never be increased. And the reason for that is that these products are either paid all up front or you pay them over a short period of time, typically ranging between 5 and 15 years. Some products or some companies only offer 5 or 10-year periods. Some companies, will go as high as 15 years. There's some other companies out there now that are offering, pay to 100. So depending on the age of the client when they buy the product, they can basically divide up the payments to age 100. And, what that does is that it lowers the yearly premiums that they're paying on the product. But they're locked in, they'll never go up in price. So I think that's, something to consider. They are flexible in terms that they will cover in-home care as well as facility care. So all the hybrid products available today will give you both options. If you decide to receive care at home, you can do so. If you want to go into a facility, you can do so as well. And they offer what we call indemnity benefits. And an indemnity benefit, unlike a reimbursement benefit, is a benefit that once you qualify for the long-term care benefit, they will send you cash. So the company will write a check and send it directly to you. Obviously, the advantage of having a product that is indemnity in nature is that now you can choose where and how you receive your care. It may be that you're not sick, so you may not need a registered nurse or a professional to come and help you, but rather you just have, you may not be able to fend for yourself, or you may be dependent on somebody else's help. You can hire a family friend or a family member to come and help you with the things that you need help with. So those are, I think those are the most popular products today. We also have life insurance. So a lot of people can buy life insurance and add a rider. Obviously, if there is a need for a death benefit, it can still be a very good option for clients. The downside is that you do have to qualify medically. You have to go through a medical underwriting process, qualify, and then pay for the life insurance. The other downside is that life insurance doesn't include an inflation rider. So typically clients would have to buy enough death benefits so that, if they feel they need $500,000 to cover their expenses for long-term care, then you kind of have to calculate all that up front and figure out how we can buy enough death benefit that's going to, cover the cost of long-term care, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. And then, for those clients, there may be clients that don't qualify for this product. A lot of the hybrid products, they don't require medical underwriting, that they do require a phone interview. But depending on what type of medicine the client may be on, they may not qualify for those products. So an alternative is annuities. There's a lot of annuities fixed annuities out there that basically give you 2 times or 3 times your initial investment for long-term care. So if you are someone that don't qualify for some of these other products that I mentioned, an annuity with a long-term care rider may be an alternative to consider. So obviously, this year has been interesting. As I think we've all been affected by COVID-19 in some way or another, and it's affected the insurance industry as well. So we've received a lot of questions from clients. In my cover, I already have coverage. I bought this life insurance. I bought this long-term care product. Am I still covered? And the answer to that is yes. Most carriers do not include any exclusions for pandemics, but it's always good to check your policy to make sure that that's not the case. Stephanie, can you kind of forward? Yeah, there you go. Another thing that I'd like to clarify is what is long-term care. I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what long-term care is. And the definition of long-term care is if you're someone who needs help with 2 or 6 activities of daily living, or ADLs. And those ADLs include transferring, bathing, dressing, feeding, toileting, or anything related to continence. Then if you're not able to do 2 of those 6, you qualify for long-term care. Also, anything that is cognitive. So if you're experiencing onset of dementia or Alzheimer's or anything that is related to the brain, then it automatically triggers the benefit. The only requirement, obviously, is that you meet your elimination period. Standard in the industry is, 90 days. Some companies go as low as 30 days, but, the standard is typically 90 days. So the first 90 days are not covered by the insurance company. But, that's something that, we would discuss with you at time of, the meeting and what type of product would be best for the specific individual. And then if you have one of the older policies, again, I think I mentioned it before, and Jack alluded to it as well, is they may not cover home health care or professional care. They only cover facility care. So something to, consider as you're either evaluating what you currently have, or if you're, thinking about buying a new coverage, some of the things that you need to be aware of. Another question that I've been getting a lot this year is, well, what happens if I have COVID-19 currently, or I've tested positive for COVID? Will I qualify for new coverage? And the answer to that is yes. It's just on a case-by-case basis, depending, the severity. They'll determine if they need to put a suspended maybe for 30 to 90 days. Or if, depending on your overall health history, it may be a little longer than that. But the answer to it is that if you have it or you've been tested positive, you can still qualify for either life insurance or long-term care. We can move forward, Stephanie. One more. So, one of the things that, that I think has been a positive throughout this whole year with the pandemic is that a lot of our carriers have eased up their, how they do business. So, we're really, doing a lot of WebEx meetings over the phone and the computer. I think initially people were having a difficult time with it, but I think that we've all kind of accepted, and it is what it is. So a lot of the meetings that I'm doing today are via WebEx with clients. If you are someone who already have coverage and don't really understand what you have, we can help you with that part. We have I have a back office where we have individuals that specialize in really getting in-force ledgers from some of the existing carriers. And just by nature, we have contracts with most of the carriers out there. So It's really as easy as getting an authorization from, the individual, and then we can go get that information from the carrier and help you figure out, what you have. Stephanie, can you scroll down? There you go. A lot of it is being done electronically, like I said. So if you wanted to apply, for coverage, it can all be done online today. In the past, we needed to do a lot of, paperwork and needed to meet in person. But, a lot of carriers have changed their ways and they're accepting electronic applications as well as electronic signatures. So I think if there's any upside to everything that's happened this year, this is one of those where I think it's become easier to work with the carriers and easier to get people approved as well. One more time. So yeah, I mentioned a lot of these carriers, specifically to long-term care, they don't require medical exams. They do require a phone interview that's designed to test your cognitive. So they're typically 30 to 45 minutes in length. And what happens during this phone interview is they give you 10 words to remember during the interview, and if you remember them, then typically you pass and you qualify for the product. You don't have to remember all of them, but the more you can remember, obviously, the easier it is to get qualified. And also the delivery, everything is done electronically. So even the contracts are now being sent directly to you via email. So that's, in that regard, it's become a lot easier. Let's see. So again, I think Jeff and I are here to be a resource for anyone that needs it. And, our promise to you is if you have questions, if you, are not sure that you need insurance or you're not sure what you have, Jeff and I can help you with that. Don't hesitate to contact us, and we'd be more than happy to help you figure out if you already have coverage, what it is that you have. And if you don't have coverage and this is an area where you, like to explore, then we can review different options with you guys and kind of walk you through the entire process. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Stephanie, and you guys heard from the presenter so far, medical and financial tips. Stephanie is going to walk us through some legal planning tips. Stephanie?
Thank you, Christian. Christian said something very interesting when he was talking about the underwriting process. And what caught my attention was that you mentioned they're really focusing more on the cognitive state of mind of the person applying for the benefits. And that really dovetails with the legal planning aspect, which is we sometimes at any age only have a short window of opportunity, meaning we have a time frame when we're able to comprehend. We can use our reasoning skills, we can use our judgment skills. And people have to be mentally competent for an attorney like myself to be able to create a legal plan for them. So you've heard the adage, the time value of money. And the downside of not planning ahead and having that legal plan when a person is still competent is that when they become incapacitated, their friends or their family, unfortunately, are going to incur a great expense to go to court to become a guardian. In addition, one of the advantages of having the legal plan is it creates a management system where the decisions for medical and financial can be made in private, meaning that your next door neighbor, somebody down the street, is not going to know about your personal affairs. There's nothing that's going to be recorded, and by avoiding a guardianship, nothing is a public record where anybody can sit down at their computer at home and see your information on their screen. If you remember some of the old MasterCard ads that came on TV, they were very well done because they didn't focus so much on the cost of an experience, but they focused on the feeling that the experience created. And so sometimes people are concerned about what is it going to cost them to create the legal plan. What is an intrinsic value of creating a legal plan and doing it properly is you, number one, keep your dignity. You keep your independence. You get to decide who are going to be the people that we call fiduciaries to assist in making medical and financial decisions. And there's no value that we can assign to that feeling of dignity and independence. So if you don't have a plan, or you made your plan a long time ago, you want to make sure that you're addressing two very important aspects. The first one is what we call the estate plan. Estate plan meaning, how are you going to pass on your wealth at the time of your demise? So you might do this through creating a last will and testament, where you identify the personal representative to oversee things, and you identify the people or the charities that are going to inherit. You might need to think about creating a special needs trust if a beneficiary has a disability or special needs, or you might need a trust for a beneficiary that's not fiscally responsible, or perhaps a beneficiary that has an addiction. Another legal tool that you can use to create your estate plan is a revocable trust. Now here there's an additional advantage similar to the will, where you're assigning a trustee to oversee your financial affairs and you're designating beneficiaries. The added benefit here is that rather than the procedure involving the court system to transfer the assets to your beneficiaries, everything is being done in private, being handled by your trustee without court supervision. The second aspect of a complete legal plan is what we call the incapacity plan. Now, it doesn't mean that we're planning to become incapacitated in the future. It means that we have a management plan should we become incapacitated, whether that means short-term or more long-term. So the key documents that are part of that incapacity plan is the durable power of attorney for financial decision making, the designation of healthcare surrogate for medical and healthcare decisions, the living will, which allows us to express our end-of-life preferences for care should we be diagnosed with a terminal illness, and we can also consider a declaration of organ donation should we wish to benefit other people or to benefit medical research and study. Now, it's not enough to just have the estate plan, because then you will be caught unprepared when you're incapacitated, and it could be too late then to create the incapacity plan. Similarly, you don't want to have just the incapacity plan and not the estate plan, because then you're going to leave a problem for your beneficiaries. So both of these work in partnership with one another. Now, you want to choose your fiduciaries carefully. You want to think about the task that's going to be involved and the right person to fulfill that kind of task. You want to consider things like the person's educational background, their vocation, how they handle stress and making decisions under pressure. So it's about matching the right person with the job. And don't forget how important it is to name an alternate fiduciary. We certainly don't have a crystal ball to look into to be able to say whether the first person you've named in your documents is going to be well and healthy when you need to rely on them. And because we can't look into that crystal ball, it's so important to name at least one, if not two, alternate fiduciaries so that your plan doesn't fall apart should your first fiduciary predecease you or become incapacitated themselves. So I hope that today's webinar has conveyed the message of how important it is to work with a team of professionals to coordinate a plan for you so you have the best likelihood of success. And this team Nicole talked about earlier can include your accountant, your financial advisor, your support system, which might be family or friends, a care manager, and certainly an insurance advisor like Christian. So at this time, we'd like to open it up to questions that any of the attendees have. You're welcome to either unmute your microphone or use the chat box feature, which appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. It looks like a speech bubble from the comic strip. So please feel free to ask any of the presenters a question. Well, it appears there are no questions. So I'd like to thank everyone who joined us today. We will be publishing this recording in the next 48 hours, so you can go to the resource page to watch it again or share it with anybody that you think would benefit from the information. I invite you to join me next month for my monthly webinars where you can register on the calendar page. And don't forget, on the website, you can register to receive a free document checklist to see what you have in place and what might need to be added so that your legal plan is complete. I want to wish everybody good health and a wonderful Thanksgiving next week. Thank you for joining me and my co-presenters today.